Welcome to Hyundai Power Equipment. Thank you for purchasing your HYMT5080 5-in-1 multi-tool. Today I'm going to demonstrate exactly what you get and give you a brief out-of-the-box demonstration on how to put everything together. Right, first of all, we've got the head unit, which has got the petrol engine, 2-stroke. A little bit of assembly required with that, with just one of the handles, which you have to set to your own position that suits yourself. I'll show you that a little later. The extension pole gives you an extra meter or so that you can use with any one of the other implements to give you longer reach. Next along the line is the chainsaw head. Again, comes with a pole. A little bit of assembly of the chainsaw blade, pretty standard as you would get with a large chainsaw. I'll go through this later. You've got the chain bar, plastic protective cover to protect yourself from the sharp chain, and the chain itself in this bag here. Next we have the strimmer head. Here's the main body of the strimmer head. A little bit of assembly again. The guard has to be fitted. This is the strimmer head itself. Comes with an extra bit of strimmer wire. Then you have the two trimming blades. There are two here. One is an 8-tooth version, 8T written on the bottom of the packet, and the other one's a 3-tooth version. There's a tick in a little 3-tooth box and it looks pretty much like that. Next component is the Hedge trimmer. Comes with two plastic guards fitted so you don't cut your hands when you're assembling it, and it's always very good to keep these on it when in use. A little bit of assembly again. Here's the pole that goes with it. I'll show you how to assemble that a bit later on. Next, 2-stroke oil mixing bottle. Now this is very important with these machines. The mixture for this machine is going to be 40:1. Now on the bottle it does have various graduations, and you'll see on the one side 40:1. There's a 1 litre mark on the bottle, so you fill up with your unleaded fuel to 1 litre and then add your 2-stroke oil until it comes up to the 40:1 mark, and that will be the correct mixture. Always use the correct mixture. Next, toolkit. Nice little packet to keep everything in safely. In here is all the little nuts and bolts and screws that you may need for assembly of all the other parts. Comprehensive user manual. Pretty much everything you need to know about assembly is actually in there, but quite often a video is the easier way to do it. Then you've got the user's harness for supporting the machine. I'll show you how to adjust this to yourself later on, and how to fit it and how it all works. Face mask, pretty much self-explanatory. A little bit of assembly needed, I'll show you that as well. Ear defenders. Pretty obvious the reason why you're going to need ear defenders with a little 2-stroke motor if you're doing it for long periods. And a pair of gloves. Now again, self-explanatory. We've got very sharp objects with chainsaw chains, trimmer blades. For your own protection we add those into the kit. And that's pretty much everything that you're going to get in the box with your HYMT5080 5-in-1 multi-tool. Okay, so first of all we're going to tackle the head unit. On the one end you've got your 50cc 2-stroke engine, and on the other end the socket where all your implements will be plugged in. So one head unit, you get 5 machines or 5 tools. As you can imagine, takes up a lot less space than having 5 complete machines. Anyway, hence the 5-in-1, what an option to go for. Okay, this is the secondary handle on the front. Trigger grip, secondary handle. The secondary handle will have to be fitted. Now this is adjustable and can be moved up and down the shaft to suit the sort of dimensions across your arms when you're using it with your trigger and where your hand feel comfortable. Obviously I've got quite short arms, but you know, somebody a lot bigger than myself might need it a bit further away. So it is adjustable up and down. So what I'd probably recommend is that first of all that it's fastened quite loosely, and then you can adjust it to what suits you and then tighten up the screws at a later time. Toolkit. Inside the toolkit you'll find there's a couple of Allen keys. This one's a 4mm one. And you'll find 4 long screws. They're about 30-40mm long. These are the screws that are for putting this handle on. So also in the bag you'll find 4 nuts that fit these screws. First of all you need to push these nuts into the barred handle. There's little hexagonal holes, 4 nuts. Give them a good push into 4 holes. Sometimes they can be a little bit stiff, but if you screw into the nut first and give it a push on the screw, you'll push it home. So that's first part. Basically we're going to be sandwiching this unit over this rubber bush you'll see that the top half has 4 holes and there's 4 threaded nuts in the back side of this. So the two go together over the shaft, 4 screws, and it clamps up. So I'll demonstrate that now. So basically if you put that handle underneath, you'll see there's a groove here and a groove in the rubber bung. Soft grip handle and then the rubber bung. There's a line in here, basically fits that groove, so that gives you a guide as to alignment. So you just put that on the bottom and give it a little push. Exactly the same with the top part. Just line up the two, give it a little push. Basically then you can put your 4 screws in the 4 holes. You might have to do a little bit of a wriggle and a jiggle to get the holes to line up, but it's pretty simple really, it's just 4 screws in 4 holes. So we'll get them started. Try and get all 4 started in the threads first. There's 2. 3. It's not very interesting, I'm afraid, at this point, but it's just 4 screws going into 4 holes. That's a slippery Allen key, that one. There we are, you pretty much get the picture with that. Once all 4 are in position, I won't tighten them right up. Oh, excuse me, cut that out. So they're loosely fastened on there. As you see, you can actually still rotate it around and push it up and down the shaft a little bit. I could leave it a little bit looser so it would slide easy, but you can push it up and down. Pretty much once you've got it in position and you're hooked up with your harness on and you found a nice balance point out of all 4 of these holes, you'll find a place that feels most comfortable to put the handle for yourself. And that's basically all the assembly there is on the head unit. Okay? And don't forget, once you've found your position, tighten up the 4 screws so it stays in the position that's best for you. Okay, so we're going to do the strimmer head next. A little bit of assembly again, put the guard on the end. Not hugely technical this. If you look at the strimmer head, just under this cup here, you'll see a hole in the outer. Now, if you rotate the hole round, you'll find a point, eventually, where there's another hole underneath. Using the Allen key, if you put it right through the 2, it locks off the head. Right, so the next thing to do is remove the nut on the end, turning it into the left-hand thread. As you can see, turning the looking from the end, clockwise, and off it comes. So there's the nut, the washer, and there are 2 other plates. So we strip the head down now basically to its bare bones, and we're going to fit the guard. Now, you'll see 3 holes, threaded holes on the outside, and 3 holes in this flange on the guard. So, put the guard on, facing up the line of the handle, and again in the tools kit you'll see 3 smaller screws, probably about 10 or 12 mil long. So you just line up the holes. See if I can hold on to it. Get them started by hand. There's 1. There's 2. The 3rd one. And tighten them up again with the Allen key. We'll just drive them all home first, and then we'll tighten them down firmly at the end. These screws do have spring washers underneath them, so you do need to tighten them down properly. Obviously you don't have to overstrain them, but a good hand tight with the Allen key long ways will do the job, and they won't come loose. A little bit more on that one. A little bit more on that one. There we are. That's that bit done. Now you see now that the guard is fitted, there's a slot in the guard, which which lines up with the original slot on the inside, and that's the point where you put your Allen key through to lock the shaft off when you want to stop the head rotating. So we'll put the components back on in the same order we took them off. That's the drive ring. You'll see it's got a spline on the inside and a cup. Cup face goes down. Then the washer, high face goes up. And then that's the final ring. So that's basically back how you had it. Now then, when you're using these parts, they'd be used in conjunction with the two cutting blades as opposed to the strimming head. So as we've got those here, I'll show you how to fit a cutting blade. This one's the 3-tooth cutting blade. It looks like this. Okay, there's the cutting blade. Now on the outside of the cutting blade is a plastic guard because it is reasonably sharp and it just protects you while you're putting it together and when you store it to stop it getting damaged. So we're going to fit the cutting blade. As I said, writing on one side, nothing on the other. It's directional blade, sharp one side, not on the other. This faces the guard, so it's facing up when you're using it. So, with just the one bang in place, fit the blade over this register. Then, next we need to fit the clamp ring or washer. Now this has got a dome on one side and a recess on the other. Recess side goes against the blade. After this, we've got the central spool. It's basically a bump guard for the underside so that when it protects the nut when you're on the floor. And then counterclockwise with the nut, it's a left hand thread. Screw it down till you feel resistance. Then again, you'll see the hole in the side, spin it round till they line up. Here we are. Hold the Allen key in the hole and that's now locked it off. Using the box spanner that's provided, counterclockwise, holding the Allen key in the hole on the underneath, tighten it down till it's firmly locked. There we are. That's basically the 3-tooth blade in position with its plastic safety guard. Probably recommend you leave this on at all times when not in use, you know, for your own safety, because this can be quite sharp. You know, you could be walking around, bump it into your leg or something, and you know, it could cut things as you're walking by, or scratch cars if you bumped into a car with it or what have you. Keep the plastic guard on until you're going to use it. Basically a little popper here, little popper there, and off she comes. Here we are, and that will be ready for use. Next we'll remove this blade. As I said, it does come with a guard, so we don't cut our fingers, we'll put the guard back on before we go any further. Much the same, find the little slot, line up the hole, you'll see it coming round if you just rotate it by hand. So when changing these blades, it's always best to remove the implement itself from the motor head, and at least that way there's no way you can have an issue with the motor starting up and the blade spinning while you're trying to undo it. You never know who's going to pull starting it on the other end, you never know. So remove the implement whenever you're working on any of these implements, remove them from the machine before you start changing any heads or tensioning chainsaw blades or anything like that. Again, left hand thread, remember. So as I'm looking down on it, clockwise is undo. Pretty much the exact opposite way that you normally would have if you were tightening or loosening any other sort of nuts, really. So that's pretty much that blade removed. Back in its packet so we can keep it nice and safe for next time. Now there is one more blade. That was the 3-tooth blade. There's the 8-tooth blade. I'll show you what it looks like. So you can see 8 teeth. Now the fitting procedure for this one, exactly the same. The writing, the directional arrow facing up. So, as I said, that's the two blades that fit on the strumming head. And next I'll show you how to fit the strumming head itself. Okay, so having removed the cutting heads, we're now going to show you how to fit the strimmer head. Now, I've taken everything off here. Again, we go back to our little collar with a drive with a star-shaped spline inside. Again, a cup shape facing towards the head. Again, this has the hole that you can feed the Allen key through to lock the shaft. So, that on first. Straight after that goes the strumming head. Now, again, very like the nut that holds the blades on. If you remember, the nut was a left-hand thread. The strumming head is a left-hand thread. The reason for this is basically it's not to be awkward and make it backwards to every thread you have normally known. With the direction of rotation of the strimmer as it goes this way, with it being a left-hand thread, instead of it constantly trying to loosen itself, under the torque of acceleration, it'll be constantly trying to tighten itself up. It's a safety thing. A left-hand thread is, the best way to do it. So even if the nut is loose, there's much less chance of it coming undone and something flying off with it being a left-hand thread. So there is a proper engineering reason why that is a left-hand thread. Okay, so as with the other, this is also a left-hand thread. Turn to the right. Would it be loose? Turn to the left, tighty. So we're tightening it up by turning it anti-clockwise. Right, again, look for the hole. Lock off the shaft, anti-clockwise, and she's tight. It does come preloaded with a length of strimmer wire. There's a spare length comes with it. So your strimmer head will be going this way. In the back here's a little cutting blade. Most of the time this does come pre-assembled, but on occasion it is in the packet, in the little tool pack. You can see how it goes on, facing towards the outside, little nut and bolt, both sides. Much the same, Allen key there, little spanner to hold the nut that comes in the toolkit, get the right end. Tighten up the two screws and that's the little cutting blade. Basically if you have too much strimmer wire hanging out, as it rotates it'll cut it to length so that it's not flapping around gouging into the guard. And that's the strimmer head assembled. Okay, next we have the Hedge trimmer head. Again, a little bit of assembly. Basically we need to fit the drive pole into it. Two plastic guards on here. Nasty teeth under there, obviously for cutting hedges, so we'll leave those on for now while we're assembling it. Right, I'll try and put this in a position where you can see it. Again, using exactly the same Allen key. Two bolts. This is a clamp bolt, and this is a location bolt. Now, we'll remove the location bolt completely. There we go. Right, just put that to one side for the moment. So that's completely removed. We'll make sure this clamp bolt is loose. A couple of turns back is fine. There we are, loose in there. Right. Now, you'll find in the box a plain pole, nothing on it. This is the pole that goes with the hedge trimmer. Now, on this pole, on the one end, you've got a square hole. That hole is what connects to the head unit, and you'll see a round hole. And what we're attempting to do is to fit this into here. It's quite simple really, but just fit it into here. You'll see that the spline shaft will go into the little splined hole inside, and we're going to rotate this shaft until that small hole just lines up with the hole where the screw goes in. So just do that. You can look through, and as you rotate, you can see the hole line up. At this point, without moving it, we'll put the screw back in. Now, if you haven't got it lined up, you'll find that the screw will come to a stop before it gets all the way in. Now, pretty much, really lightly, I managed to screw that all the way in, so it's gone through the hole in the tube without hitting on the pole rather than the hole. If you don't get it lined up properly, that screw won't go all the way back very lightly. You know, it'll basically stop when it hits the tube. So I know that's correct. There we are, and I'll tighten that one up. Stops any rotation of the tube. Next job, tighten the clamp screw back up, and that just secures the whole assembly. And that can be tightened up. Okay, so that's the assembly done of the hedge trimmer head. It does rotate all the way around through 90 degrees in either direction. Just a quick explanation of how to do that. There's a lock pin on the side. Pull the pin out, pull the bottom lever. Then you push the top lever, squeezing the two together, and as you can see, you can rotate through 180 degrees. So wherever position you are with your hedge trimmer up on a hedge, and you might want a shumper on the top of it. And trying to maintain something around a corner, it can go that way and that way, just for your own convenience. You might be doing under the bottom of a hedge at an angle or something like that, across trimming the bottom. And that might be the ideal angle, or maybe even straight, saves you getting on your knees, that sort of thing. So it's adjustable for angle in right through 180 degrees to the shaft. Okay, so the next tool we're going to look at, having done the strimmer head with the cutters, the blade cutters as well, and we've already done the hedge trimmer, is the chainsaw. This one's a little bit tricky. There's a little bit of adjustment needed, but it's not hugely difficult once you've I'll try and explain it quite clearly, and you should find it quite easy to do. This is the head itself. Quick explanation of a few little details. Little tank here with a cap on it. It's for your chain oil. Recommend you buy a good quality chain oil. It doesn't use lots and lots of it, as you can see. It only holds a small amount, a couple 100 mil maybe. But it does keep your chain lubricated and everything running smooth, and your chain will live a lot longer, and your bar, if you just make sure that you're running chain oil at all times. Okay, now there is an adjuster on here for the amount of chain oil that comes out over a period of time. If you find it's flicking oil everywhere, you can turn it down, but you need to keep that blade moist at all times. Okay, so we'll show you how to assemble it. Assemble it. First of all, this is the main hand wheel for the guard. Normal sort of thread, not a left-hander like we had with the strimmer. Undo it completely. Nearly there. And you can remove the guard. Now then, this is what's known as the chain bar. It is possible to put these on back to front. As you can imagine, you've got your filler cap at the top. Whichever way you put it, that way, Hyundai's written upside down. Put it on the correct way, and Hyundai's written the right way up. So, that's what you're looking for, Hyundai written the right way up. Also, you'll see on the blade is a chain direction. It shows a little picture of one of the teeth on the chain pointing that way. On the main body, you'll also see there's an arrow pointing that way on the top and that way on the bottom. So basically, they coincide. Right, so that's the right way up. Okay, so the next thing is the chainsaw blade. Now, it's a chain and it's a saw blade. It's sharp and you will cut yourself on it if you're not extremely careful. I strongly recommend you wear gloves. But do like I do, not like I say, isn't it? Or something like that. Do as I say, not like I do. I won't be accused of that. I'll put my gloves on. Right then. Take the chain out of the packet. And we'll sort it out so that it becomes a hoop. There we are. The chain is now hoop shaped. Now on the chain, you will see a corresponding shape to the shape it showed on the blade, showing the direction of travel. Now then, as I lay that out like this, the little arrows on the chain pointing in that direction, and then going round and round, obviously, pointing in that direction. Now as we can see from the head, if I would put that chain here, it would be the same direction. That way on the top, that way on the bottom. that way on the top, that way on the bottom. It's very important that we get these things the right way around. Okay, so picking up the chain, gloves back on. Okay, right then. Fit the chain to the bar. There's a little slot runs all the way along the top and the bottom of the bar. A little roller on the end. The chain fits into the bar with its little tongues on the inside in the slots all the way around. Right. Now then, here we have the drive sprocket, which is the circular wheel. And again, each one of these little internal drive dogs fits into a little slot in there. So, trying to keep everything in the slots. A little bit tricky just to get it all in the right place at the right time, but keeping everything in the slots, you should be able to locate the blade into position. Now, without it all falling apart on me, it's tricky for me to show you this. Doing it flat on the table is probably the easiest way. I'm actually pulling that blade that way a little bit just to keep it tensioned so that it doesn't come out. Now the teeth are in the wheel, the teeth are in the slot all the way around. The chain's got arrows going that way, the bar's got arrows going that way, and the body's got arrows going that way and that way at the bottom. Everything's the correct way around. Okay, so now we come to refit the cover. Now, you'll see there's a little thumb wheel on the cover, and that's basically a chain tension adjuster. And this little pin here, which moves back and forth in the slot, is the chain tensioning pin. It basically, by rotating this hand wheel, this little thumb wheel, will move left and right, pushing the blade out or pulling it back to adjust the tension. Now you need to get this pin roughly in the right position so that when it's sort of in its state where you're assembling it, that the pin lines up with the hole in the blade. Now you'll see the threaded hole in the center which picks up the thread that's sticking out of the chainsaw head, and then that pin has to locate into one of the holes in the blade, into the lower hole. And then you'll also see there's a pin on the main body here, which when you get down towards the bottom will locate in this hole here in the plastic cover. So let's attempt to do that. Now then, if you find as you're trying to locate it in position, you tighten it down, that it sort of locks off and isn't going down properly, you may have to adjust the thumb wheel just to get the pin into a position where it'll drop in quite easily. And it should actually go together quite easily as long as you've got that in the right position. So I shall attempt to do that now and see if I've got it in the right position. Here we are, let's have a look. Oh, there we are. First time lucky. Now then, we're very nearly at the bottom here, we'll get it somewhere near. Loosen it off again. Right. Now then, before I tighten this, I'm going to be touching the blade again, so I'm going to put my glove back on. As you can see, the blade will move up and down and the chain is quite slack. So, plus down, minus loose. So if I want to loosen the blade off, towards the minus. If I want to tighten it up, down towards the plus. Now then, I've just got that sort of semi-tight but not super tight. I'm just going to push it down on the thumb wheel towards the plus, and I'm looking for a certain chain tension. Now, it's difficult to explain, but I can try and show you. That there is flopping about, and I can pull that right out of the blade. The inner teeth then that run in the guide, I can pull it right out without any effort at all, really. Now that's too loose. So, a little bit more tension. Like that. Now then, now I can pull that out quite easily, but I can't pull it out of the slot, and it springs back in. But I can't get it out of the slot, but it's just springing back in. That's probably a good start, maybe a tiny bit tighter, but I wouldn't go much tighter than that. Now then, there is a little bit of play up and down with the blade in this clamping arrangement. The position you're looking for is pushed up, still with your gloves on. So I'm just going to make sure that's in the up position, pulled up. So I'm trying to bend this blade up, not with a great deal of force, just making sure it's tightly up. And then I'm going to tighten up the guard. Right, now then, the blade doesn't move now. Now, there is movement in there and it does spring back in. There is a little bit of movement in there. Remembering that this blade is very sharp, I've got a glove on here. turns quite freely. Maybe a little bit too tight, you see, because it's quite tight, right? In that case, you don't want it too tight, because that'll wear things out very quickly. So maybe towards the minus direction, loosen it off a little. 1, maybe 2 notches. Okay, pulling the blade up, tighten the guard back down. And that tension is about right. It can't come out at the bottom there, and it does spring almost all the way back into the groove. That's about right as a starting position. I'm just going to put the cover on there. I can take the glove off. That's now safe. Can't cut myself. When you first start using the chainsaw attachment, with it being a brand new chain, it's going to go slack as the spring does its initial give. That chain is going to go slack fairly quickly. So I'd probably recommend after a minute or so of cutting, just keep an eye on that blade tension and make sure it doesn't become too slack. If it does become slack to a point where you can pull the chain out right out of the bottom and it's sort of, you can literally see daylight and it's hanging and sagging, a bit more tension on the blade, but keep doing it, you know, through the first hour or two of use. Just keep an eye on it, because the chain will settle down and do an initial stretch and get a little bit longer. So during that period, you will need to keep an eye on the chain tension, that initial period. And then obviously before you use it, every time before you use it, check your blade tension. Again, don't forget to use chain lubrication oil. You'll see on the bottom here is an adjuster screw. If you find that it's spraying oil everywhere, which is certainly something you don't want, you'll see direction here, minimum, maximum. You can rotate the screw for less oil, rotate the other way for more oil, but just make sure that that chain is always wet with oil, but not dripping so it's spraying oil everywhere. For instance, if you were to run it for about 10 seconds or what have you, you might expect to see a few dots of oil on the ground or what have you. Just a few dots, not a great big long line throwing off, so to speak, but just to make sure you are getting oil through. And that's pretty much the setup for the chainsaw. Now, it's a dangerous piece of kit. Read the user manual, all the safety instructions. It's a chainsaw, it's a nasty thing. All the safety instructions are in the user manual. This is pretty much just how to assemble it in general use. Okay, so that's the chainsaw done. Okay, well, so far we've explained and assembled the main motor, the main head assembly, strimming head with its various options, the hedge trimmer. We've been through the chainsaw. Next implement you've got is the extension pole. Basically does what it says on the tin. It's for extending the length of reach you could have. So if you were trimming an extremely high hedge, you'd use a main head unit plugged into there. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And then whichever implement you happen to be using plugs into there, and it gives you all that extra reach right up there or right over there, you know, that sort of thing. Gives you that extra meter or so of reach. In this instance I'm using it with a chainsaw head, but it can be used with any of the heads. So there's the unit. And next we'll talk about PPE, or personal protective equipment it's called, but PPE for short. A pair of gloves come, we've already mentioned those. You get a pair of ear defenders or ear protectors, you know, to prevent you going deaf, and which are very useful. Then, a little bit of assembly required here, the face mask. Right, here's the main part that fits the head, multi-adjustable. All shapes and sizes will fit this, no problem at all. It'll adjust your head. Push and turn the button at the back, and it'll tighten onto your head, so that's absolutely secure. That's the adjustment for opening and closing. So, you need to fit the visor to it. If you take your visor, it's obviously got that shape of curve, so it's going to curve around the front. There we are. So we'll start off with the centre one. We'll just turn him through 90 degrees. Put the outer two on. Hold them tight. Get them started. Turn those 180. Round to the other end. Turn them 180. If you find that as you're coming round that the holes don't line up, turn the tab through 180 degrees and it rotates it along and it'll come back into line. So, you know, if you find that as you're coming around the hole doesn't line up, just rotate the tab 180 degrees and then it will line up, and then turn back the other way 180 degrees to get it to lock into place. So that's pretty much that now locked into place. There we are. There's your visor. Obviously, any strimming operations, chainsawing, hedge trimming, anything like that, you're going to get bits of debris coming down from above or flicking up off the grass and what have you. You really need to protect your eyes. This is pretty much, this screen version is a face protector, and it's to stop, not 100% protect your eyes, but to protect foreign objects hitting you in the face, bits of bramble, that sort of thing. Probably would recommend, you know, if you're going to be using it quite a lot, that you actually wear a pair of protective safety glasses as well, and it just prevents anything being able to come up from underneath and catch you in the eye, because you know, you really don't want to get something in your eye off the strimmer. So it's basically a face protector to stop brambles and things coming into your face, but I'd probably recommend you wear a pair of safety glasses as well. So that's that. We've done the 2-stroke oil. Perhaps I ought to go over this just one more time. It's a 2-stroke machine. Extremely important you get the right mixture. This bottle, it goes for various machines, but the mixture for your machine is 40:1. Now, there's a mark on the bottle for 1 litre of petrol. Fill it up with clean unleaded petrol to that line. Be quite accurate with this. Then the next line up the bottle, on whichever one it is, I think this does multiple things. I think it does 35, 50, 25 and 40:1. In this case it's this one. Fill it up with your 2-stroke oil, proper 2-stroke oil, up to the 40:1 mark, and you'll have the correct mixture. Shut it all off, give it a good shake, you can put it straight into your machine. But that's very important, as I said, to get the correct mixture for reliability. We've already dealt with the manual. This pretty much covers everything, and it is explained quite well in here about the 40:1 mixture as well. As we've been using the tools all the way along, the machine does come with a spare spark plug. The little box spanner that we used earlier on the strimmer head is also the spark plug spanner. So it does come with a spare spark plug. But we'll keep everything in the toolkit, nothing gets lost. It's all there when we need it. The next thing we're going to talk about is the harness, which is what you use for hanging your 5-in-1 tool device, you know, on your hip. Takes the weight of it, spreads it right throughout your body rather than you actually having to carry it around in your arms. You know, when you're strimming especially. So I'll show you how to put the harness on. Basically, this little square pad here, I don't know what shape you'd call that. Anyway, that shaped pad there would go basically behind your shoulders. And these 2 comfort strips here, they're very comfortable when you're wearing it. Basically run over your shoulders and take the most of the weight. So I'll just show you that. Basically I'm looking to put that one there. And that one there. Right, let's just make sure I've got it twisted. There we are. Now then, the 5-in-1 multi-tool is going to hang here. And then there's a brass plate, which is a little sort of circular hole device, which clicks closed here. Now then, I've already adjusted this for myself, but it's adjustable in several different directions. You know, the height of this plate here, you know, where this belt sits around the chest here, how tight the shoulder straps are, and there's plenty to play with. I'm not a very big chap myself, but you know, I can imagine somebody who was 6 foot odd is going to need to use a lot more of this, hence why we've got these flaps here. For myself, if it was just me that was using it all the time, I would probably, you know, fold those up, you know, and perhaps use a little cable tie or something just to keep those out of the way so they weren't flapping around. Makes it a bit easier to put on, and the same with any of the other loose bits. But there's plenty there for the bigger chap, shall we say. Okay, so I'll just show you the clip now for attaching the tool. I pulled out this little metal spike here, and you've got the clip. Now basically this clip will be attached, pretty much you can attach it permanently to your strimmer head or hedge trimmer head, whatever implement you're using, but you pretty much can leave that permanently attached. Once you find the balance point of which hole amongst the 5 holes you're going to use it for best balance for yourself. But basically the machine with that will come across. The clip has a rectangular loop, so to speak, on the top of it, and it fits over this little barb here, and you see it's got a little slot in it. On the end of the red tag, there's a little locking pin, drops down through that slot, and stops it coming off. So there's no way that is going to come off there. You've got the machine balanced. taking the weight on the shoulders, everything spread through. Okay, I'm going to just quickly demonstrate the PPE that comes with it. Now for strimming, grass cutting, you might be in the brambles, you could be anywhere. Probably recommend long sleeves, but for the purpose of this I'm not going to get changed, so I'll show you the PPE. First of all, you're going to put on your protective face shield, ear protection, pair of gloves. Again, you get brambles and all sorts flicking back at you. You don't want to get all cuts on your hands and what have you. Hook yourself in. Okay. And basically, you're ready to do some gardening. Okay, I think that pretty much concludes the out-of-the-box demonstration, how to assemble and sort of general use of your 5-in-1 multi-tool. If you do have any further questions that I haven't explained here, obviously you can refer to your manual. It's pretty comprehensive, all the information you're likely to need. Should you need any further information, there is a phone number for our service department in the back of the manual, and obviously if you have any problems or there's something that you need to be talked through, you can call our service department on the number in the back of the manual. Thanks very much for listening.